Welcome everybody to Marduk's Musing number 10 with me, Georgia Kirsten, your favorite heart astrologer, and Mario, otherwise known as
Matin on Plutonic Planes on YouTube as your human design analyst and a medical astrologer and astrocartographer.
That's right. Yeah, so we're here today, and what we have coming up here is a presidential election, which we hope to get an episode out on sometime in the next week or two before the election. But even before that hits, what we're going to be focusing on today is the Mars-Pluto opposition that's coming up. We're going to have Mars and Pluto opposing each other. Mars will be at 29 degrees Cancer, and then Pluto will be at 29 degrees Capricorn. And they're going to be opposing each other on November 3rd in the middle of the night if you're here on the west coast of the United States. This is a very volatile aspect. I mean, opposition is different forces that cannot reconcile. Pluto is kind of like deep, deep. It's things that are very, very deep. Capricorn is kind of like authority figures. It's also the state. So you put those together and you get the deep state, which is kind of like a boogie word of the last decade, thanks to one of the presidential candidates. So I'm sure this is going to tie in one way or another also to our election forecast coming out next week. But so you got the deep state, and then you've got it opposed to Mars. And Mars in Cancer is also kind of like wrathful woman or the wrathful feminine. Cancer is like that feminine female motherhood energy. And Mars in Cancer, I mean, to me, that whoa, look at that. That's kind of like a little bit like a prosecutor, a woman who's a prosecutor versus kind of like an old guy who has deep power motivations. And is that not a good description of what we're getting of what we're choosing between? As much as we have a choice, given the amount of spectacle that's involved in the next 2 weeks here in the United States. But I'm not here to talk about what that means for Kamala or what that means for Trump. And I don't think Mario is either. As you know, if you've been listening to Marduk's Musing, we're actually here to talk about what that means for you, because what we want is for you to listen to these episodes and then be empowered in your daily life and have agency to transform who you are for the better. So, saying that as an introduction, Mario, what are your thoughts on this upcoming transit?
It's a transit that's gonna really drag out like a big fight, that's gonna go back and forth. Who knows who's gonna win? I mean, it's all in terminology of the coming, election or selection, however you want to see it, right? Because that's what it is, as you described it. Pluto's in Capricorn, Pluto's this old man with power, Mars is in Cancer, so it's this prosecutor type feminine energy, and it's conjunct the asteroid Panica. So perhaps it comes with remedy. Very interesting, huh? And
What is the asteroid Panica?
Panica is like, it's the remedy for whatever the illness is, whatever the injury is. It's the illness
Ah,
that one suggests or one, recommends, or I don't want to use the word prescribes, obviously. No one's a doctor here. So it's what it is. It's the remedy, it's the answer. And then we have on the other side, we have Pluto conjuncting Cassandra, the asteroid Cassandra, which is, in myth, the woman who warns of coming dangers, the psychic woman, the seer who warns of coming, travails and challenges and no one listens to, right? So interesting, huh? So on both sides, we have an asteroid that's pretty close. So as I
mm,
see it, it's like a long battle that's being dragged out. You know what it reminds me of? If anyone has seen Blood of Zeus, it's an animated series.
mm,
Um, and that series has all the characters, right? It has Pluto, it has Eris for Mars, right? And in the series, it's real interesting because Hera is aligned with Eris, and
mhm,
Hades is aligned with Demeter, obviously, because that's the mother of Persephone. And in that series, they actually have continual conflict with each other.
mm.
There's always like this on edge around each other. Like Ares is always trying to Mars, right? Always trying to like get in there and force things.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
Hades is kind of more the background, calm, cool, neutral judge of things. But then
Hmm.
when something has to do with Persephone or his underworld and his status there, he gets involved. And so even in that series, it's like a perpetual war between those two. And Mars is the god of war
Yes. Yeah.
in opposition to Pluto, which is god of death. Some people say underworld. I prefer death because the underworld is death. You
Hmm.
can't
Hmm.
get into the underworld unless you die or unless you leave your body. I mean, that's the journey there, right? It's a
Hmm.
night journey.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that's my take on what's happening. Let's go back to you before I add anything else.
It's interesting, and it's opposition. So it's like these two forces opposed to each other. And like modern astrologers or astrologers in general, a lot of them might say that Pluto is a higher octave of the energy of Mars. You find that a lot. So then you have these kind of like forces, and Mars is severing, and Pluto is, is a deep power. So there's like this sense of severing of kind of a deep power struggle or a cutting of a struggle. And what's interesting to me about that is that if you look at the exact moment of the opposition, then Mercury has moved in to Sagittarius and it's conjunct the moon. And so to me, that's like, okay, so some kind of like struggle will release on this day and open up into new possibilities. Simultaneously, you have the sun trine Saturn, sun in Scorpio, trine Saturn and Pisces, they're both water signs. Then you've got the sun, and the sun is expressing itself as a need to transform again, and it's pushing against this Saturn, which is basically stationed at this point in Pisces, um, trying to like transform the system. And I hear from both political campaigns that that's what they're trying to do. I mean, the one political campaign, it's like, well, you've got like, an African American Indian woman running to be president of the United States. That is just a shock to the old male patriarchy. On the other hand, then you've got, Donald Trump, and he's like, as white old male patriarchy as they come, but he's also a disruptor of the status quo system. If he wins, then chances are like the U.S. is going to be socially or politically realigning itself more to the values of what we would probably nominally call dictatorial autocratic rule than democratic rule. I mean, he's just saying that. He's like, I'll be a dictator for a day. I'm going to deport 10 million people in order to clean up the streets. So he's saying these heavy plutonic things, for sure, with where he's going.
Interesting.
And I feel like for us as individuals, you're getting a shift from a fixed state, which is Cancer is a fixed sign and Capricorn is a fixed sign. Um, you're getting, I mean, cardinal signs. You're, sorry, excuse me. You're getting the shift from the cardinal signs. Cancer is a cardinal sign and Capricorn's a cardinal sign, where there's been this like desire or potential or need to change who you are and what you're doing in the world. And it's a final kind of like severing of that old piece of yourself and then moving into the fixed sign of Leo and Aquarius. It's the final setting of the intention before Pluto moves into Aquarius, before Mars moves into Leo, and you start really driving for some personal goals and ambitions that you're moving into as a culmination of the previous 20 years of learning that you have done with Pluto going through Capricorn. So I think like for a lot of people, they're going to be going through a little bit of a crisis of like, no, I am done with that. And they're going to be very determined about that. And that's going to be part of what these aspects are. but I do think that there's a little bit of a kind of like a positive communication coming along with it, indicated by Mercury and the Moon conjunct. And then simultaneously, that there's this ease of moving into a new structure and transforming yourself, indicated by the Sun is trying Saturn on that day. What are your thoughts?
Thanks for that brilliant kind of protracted explanation of the intricacy of all the different planets involved in this opposition. I want to nuance several notes that you mentioned in a different direction. So more in an inner direction. So Dorje talked about the contrast here of Pluto, the mythic planets of Pluto and the stories behind them of Pluto and Mars personifying not just the individuals that are in the upcoming event, but also in our own lives in such a way as we're coming to a culmination point, which is actually expressed in the human design gate 60, where Pluto is. And that culmination is experiencing all these limitations in having focused on too many things in the last 20 years, things we want to focus on, things we don't want to focus on. And it's arriving at this transition to gate 41 at the end of January, which Pluto's going to go into. And what that means is that for a lot of us in the last couple of years, we can no longer afford to do what we don't want to do. We have to put our focus and our energies on what's correct for us, what we want, what we desire in terms of our focus and our career and how we want to support ourselves and others. And that's going to get even more. So we've been dealing with that gate 60, the gate of limitations, but we're going to go into gate 41, which is going to limit our resources in many ways, so much so that we have no choice but to have total focus on what our primary goals are. So we're, like Dorje was mentioning, we're taking it up to the next level, to the next notch of we're going to be focusing fully on what's most important to us. And we're going to be limited to that focus, as
Mm-hmm.
especially as Pluto goes in January, February, March. Adding to that, I want to note a real distinction in my perspective as an astrologer. I do not look at Pluto as the higher octave of Mars. I look at
Mm-hmm.
Pluto as the higher octave of the moon.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I do it is because, the moon is the instinct, it's the beingness of the self, it's the baby of the self. And
Mm-hmm.
Pluto, in a sense, is that transpersonal extremity of that. I mean, Pluto represents our inner temporality. So the
Mm-hmm.
tension we have now with this polarity between Mars and Pluto is the tension between outer space, our outer spatial world, the physical world, right? That Mars kind of propels us to through our Mars
Mm-hmm.
sign, and the tension of Pluto, which is an inner tension. It's an inner temporality. It's a
Mm-hmm.
frame of the concept of beingness of oneself, of how you temporally frame your life relative to how you perceive where you are in your life.
Yep. Yep.
And so there's a clock outside of us, I mean the outer clocks, but there's clocks within us as well. And so the Plutonic experience is the one of a self being reborn. It's one of total destruction of everything about yourself that is not authentic. Pluto, more than anything, represents authenticity. And authenticity, in a sense, is way more powerful than love because it's what is. It's not an
Mm-hmm.
attempt to do or not do, or want or not want, or desire or not desire, it's just beingness itself. It's just the principle of true beingness of the self. And that's why Pluto is so important to me on my channel. So I noted something else. Strong, let's see. But,
Okay, wait, can I say something
no,
there?
jump in, because I
Okay,
was, yeah.
you've opened up a whole can of worms, and I love that. I love that. I don't think that necessarily Pluto is described by Mars as a higher octave than Mars either. I'm really with you on that. But I also think that Pluto encompasses like qualities of many different planets. It becomes its own thing in that way, you know. Like for instance, you're saying authenticity of self. I do very much feel like Saturn also represents authenticity of self because Saturn is just this like, you hit your Saturn return, you hit Saturn transits, and you're just ground down to what is your essence. And then you move through with that. That's what makes it through a Saturn transit, a heavy Saturn transit. But even more so, like when you speak of Pluto as being transformation and change and that piece of what is our essence, it does remind me of this kind of way that I look at what self is. And it's part of why, I find that modern psychology is challenging for me, is because the self is always changing. It's not a static thing. It's who we are changes day to day, depending upon what we encounter and how we think and what our struggles are. And I think Pluto does represent that process of transformation itself, like the molting of the skin of a serpent. There's this constant transformational experience that's coming. And that might be part of why it is so feared as a planet when it becomes highlighted in a chart. Because we like our routines, we like our comfort zones, we like things to remain the same. And Pluto will never allow for that to happen as a principle of change and transformation.
Right.
What do you think?
You have nothing but just resonance and agreement right here. That's right on to me. In human design, the soul is observed as the personality crystal, just observing in the body what's transpiring, no
Right.
choice. And the design part of human design is the body's intelligence, the body responding to this or that. And as I observe in my own body, my own responses to my everyday world, there's no fucking choice, man. Like change is necessary. I can't help that Pluto's destroying my 10th house and recreating it. Like I can't,
Yes,
you know what I
yes.
mean? I
Yeah.
have to just observe myself responding to the verse, bringing these changes to me. And it's like I can't say no. It's just my body's intelligence just goes with it. And my mind's in total fear and objection, going, what are you doing? What's going on? We can't change this. We're used to this. This is what's safe, right?
Yep.
But no, it's just not what it is. It's fascinating as you say it because it's true. There's no we can't as safe as habit is, or it seems, right? The true nature of all life has always been change. I mean, the I Ching
Yes. Yep.
nuances this. It's called the Book of Changes for a reason, right?
Yep.
It's what it is, man. I have nothing to add except for everyone to really hear this kind of contextual frame of things, that beware of your own capacity to embody these energies and observe it, because you
Hmm.
could easily take on the Pluto role, or you could take on the Mars role.
Oh,
So if
yeah.
you
Yeah,
get
definitely.
involved with whatever it is, a new partnership, a new business partnership, a relationship, or a new social endeavor, or a new work
Hmm.
project, whatever you get involved with in the next couple weeks,
Mm.
watch the energy fluctuations of that new experience, of that process, because it's going to be very easy for that dynamic for people to put the mask on. I'm going to put the Pluto mask on. I'm going to put the Mars, on. And then there'll be a dynamic interchange. And I'm not saying to
Mm.
avoid, just observe, because
Yep.
this
Yep.
is what these mythic planets represent. They represent our ability to step into these roles and play out these dramas.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's a great note to like kind of finish this short little Pluto Mars piece on, because that is the essential advice, to step back and to observe the Pluto and Mars opposing each other and how they're creating changes in our own experience and the way we think. And not to become attached to the outcome of that, but rather to like witness it and to see where the energy leads and to see what is trying to be born or reborn through this process.
Right on, man. Right on.
Yeah,
Nothing,
nice.
nothing bad here. Beautiful.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mario. Thank you, everybody who takes the time to listen to us muse, as Marduk would, upon the nature of the stars and how they affect human society and civilization and our human psyches and our very own souls. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
All right. See you guys all later. Thanks so much for watching.